Alrighty. Hi, everyone. We're so excited to have you with us for this really special Science Week VIC Farmer Time event. My name is Jane, and I'm speaking to you from Wathaurong Country. I'd like to pay my respects to elders past, present, and emerging. Before we get cracking, the first thing that I need to remind you is please our microphones stay on mute just so that we can focus on what Farmer Mark has to say and we can hear all about his amazing production. I'd like to say a huge thank you to our special guests, Danielle, the Vice President of the Victorian Farmers Federation, and our esteemed members of the PIFA board for joining us today. And I'd also like to say a huge thank you to the Department of Agriculture, Water and Environment for funding this project. At the end of this session, I'm going to send out an email, and it's going to have some information about the different programs that the Producer Protected team offer, all of the different curriculum resources that you can use to support your food and fiber learning, and some information about the Kids to Ag program, which is an awesome initiative that provides funding to schools to help them to go out and visit farms and meet the farmers that are producing our food and fiber. All right, without further ado, I'm going to hand over to Farmer Mark.
Hey guys, how you going? So it's really good to be here. I'm really excited to talk to you about my farm. About my farm. It's a bit weird because I'm just sitting out here in a paddock. I'm just got my phone on my ute. So anyway, we'll get into it. So I'm Mark. I'm a farmer. I'm 23 years old, and we farm in far western Victoria on fairly marginal sort of country. We grow wheat, barley, canola, vetch, and we have a fair few sheep as well. So it's a lovely day, and the season's just changing from winter to spring at the moment. So the sun's out and everything's starting to grow. So on the farm with me, there's my mum and dad. They've been here for a lot of years, and my wife Chelsea and my baby daughter Alexandra. So we all live on the farm in different houses, but on the farm, it's really good. So we'll get into the main game. And the main game for this Zoom is wheat. We grow wheat. It's probably our main crop. And it is a cereal plant, so like a grass. And the grains, they're so useful. They have heaps and heaps and heaps of uses. So anyway, we plant our wheat, our seeds, into the ground in early May. We use a big tractor and a big implement on behind to dig up the dirt and place the seeds in the soil. So after about probably 2 weeks, these tiny little plants start to come out of the ground. They start to grow, and they might be tiny, but they're mighty. They're strong, all right. So after a while, we keep hoping for rain to keep the plants watered. They keep growing. And then in June, we come along with another tractor and a big, I guess you call it a spreader on the back, and we give these plants some fertilizer. So this is like your parents serving you up a really big plate of veggies. You eat up all the veggies and you get really strong. This fertilizer for the crops is the same thing. It makes it grow really well, and yeah, just makes the crop better. So they keep on growing. The crops keep on growing. We keep getting rain, hopefully, and the plants keep growing. Us as farmers and our agronomists, we spend a lot of time checking on our crops, looking at them, seeing what's happening, looking out for any diseases or weeds that might be causing trouble. And yeah, sometimes if the season's right, if the weather's right, our plants get some leaf diseases on them. So to explain that a bit better, it's probably, imagine that your mouth is stuck shut and there's a big plate of food in front of you, but you can't eat the food because your mouth's stuck shut. Well, that's what the plants are like when they have leaf diseases. But luckily, there's a spray that we can put onto the plants and that clears up the leaf disease and they start growing better again. Yes. So we have to keep hoping for rain because if we don't get rain, the crops don't grow. But in this scenario, we're going to say that it's still raining. We're hoping for rain, and it's raining. Now we're into early October. About early October, the wheat is starting to flower. Now, it's not like any other plant. You don't really see any visible flowers, but just these tiny little white specks come up on the head. Now, this is a very crucial point in the life of the plant, because if we get a frost at this time of year, like if the temperature goes down under 0 for too long, what happens is the plant tends to get a bit of a brain freeze. And what happens then is it won't set any grains, or the grains that it has set can be damaged. So this is a very big natural disaster, I guess you could call it. It's not really called a natural disaster, but it can be quite devastating for our wheat crop. So we're hoping that it hasn't got frosted, and we're into October, and like the end of October, and the wheat seeds, they're just tiny little squishy little green things, but they're filling up, they're forming, they're growing and becoming more plump, and there's more to them now. So we'll fast forward on. The seeds have grown, everything's happened, the moisture has run out. We're in December now, and it's getting hot. The plants have dried out completely, and those little wheat grains, they're as hard as rocks, and that's when we know it's time to harvest it. So we come into the paddock with this ginormous machine that's got a big spinning thing on the front and all these moving bits, and it's quite impressive, really. And what this does, it cuts the crop off, brings it into the machine, separates the little grains from all the rest, all the stalks, all the chaff, everything else, separates it all apart and puts it all into the grain tank, all the grain into the grain tank. Now, there's some pretty cool technology at work here. For one, to be able to separate the grain on such a fast level, it's pretty impressive. But we also have some GPS technology that actually, as the crop is coming into the machine, it will measure how much crop is coming in for each portion of the paddock, so that next year we know that this part of the paddock grew really well, so we don't have to put as much fertilizer on it. And yeah, so that's just a really cool thing. So after the wheat goes into the grain tank on the header, then it goes into a truck, and then it is taken to the local silos where it is stored for however long, and grain buyers come to here and they buy the grain, or they don't actually come to the site, they actually buy it on the internet. They buy it from the silos. That's what they're called. The grain storage place is called the silos. And then from there, the options are endless, really. It could go for a whole different lot of things. Wheat is used to make flour, bread, crumpets, cereal. I don't really know. Oh, pasta. Wheat is used to make pasta. There's heaps of other stuff. Like, I could go on all day listing the stuff. But yeah, it's pretty incredible what you can do with wheat. But on our farm, we're just a sort of a medium-sized farm. But our farm, personally, we grow enough wheat to make 1,190,000 loaves of bread. So just think about that for a second. Every loaf of bread you see in the supermarket, our farm last year produced enough wheat to make 1,190,000 loaves. That is a lot of bread. But yeah, wheat also can be used to feed livestock. So sheep and cows and goats, I guess, they all like to eat wheat. It's a good source of protein for them. And yeah, so some other technology that we use on the farm is we utilize GPS technology quite a bit. GPS, like communicating with the satellites in our tractors, helps us to drive in straight rows. Now, you might think straight rows, it's not really that important, but it's important that we don't overlap when we're doing things, so that we're actually saving money by not overlapping. And we're not double applying chemicals onto the crops. So this is very cool technology, similar to what is used in the driverless cars, really. So yeah, the best part about being a farmer for me is, well, I like being outside. It's lovely on days like this, but I love growing food. I love growing things that people eat. Like what we produce is something that people eat to survive on. And that is a big thing for me. Probably the hardest thing about being a farmer is dealing with the weather. Like I said, frosts when your grain's flowering and dryness, or like if you don't get enough rain, it's can be very, very challenging. And yeah, that's probably the hardest part of it. But yeah, that's a quick overview of our wheat production, and I hope you enjoyed it.
All right. Thank you so, so much for that, Mark. That was phenomenal. I would like to say a huge thank you to all of the students who joined us today, along with our special guests. If you'd like to know more about Mark's adventures on his farm, you can check out his YouTube channel. As I said, I'll be sending a follow-up email after this session with a link to the recording, along with the supporting resources that we've developed around wheat, and also more food and fiber resources. To find out about our other VIC Farmer Time sessions, check out the Producer Protect It website. All right. Thank you so much for joining us, everyone. Have a lovely Science Week.